Waiting to use it. It's my first time. I had to use the gavel just to. Good morning. Welcome to the San Diego Regional Water Quality Control Board, our March meeting. I want to remind everybody that if you would sign in the sheet at the back table there, and if you want to speak on any item, please fill out one of these cards. I think green is for, red is against, and blue's in between. But particularly if you want to speak during the public open session, let me know right away and then drop those off with Chris. There's a what's a QR code? All right, I'm going to declare that we, I guess you need to take roll first, right? And then I declare a quorum.
Yeah, Chair Strawn, just run through the
announcement first.
language first, and
Okay.
then she'll take the
All right.
roll then.
It said declare quorum. I figured we had to have a roll call first. Board members Celeste Cantu and Yen Tu have requested to participate remotely. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
And in accordance with the provisions of the Bagley-Keene Open Meetings Act, specifically Government Code Section 1123.2, remote participation requires that a quorum of board members be physically present at a single teleconference location that is open, visible, and audible to the public. I think that's us. Board members Celeste Cantu and Yen Tu may proceed remotely participating in this public meeting, although they need to disclose their present location, their precise location, and must disclose whether there are any individuals 18 years or over present in the same room with them, as well as the general nature of their relationship with those individuals. Board member two, do you have any individuals or older present with you?
Thank you, Chair. And no, I do not have anybody in the room with me.
And the same question for you, Celeste.
I am by myself here in Sacramento.
Thank you. Is it raining up there too?
Not yet, but it's expected.
Thank you, board members Cantu and Tu. You are required to remain on camera for the entire open portion of this public meeting unless there's a poor internet connection or it would be technologically impractical for you to do so. If either board member Cantu or board member Tu need to turn off their camera during the open portion of the meeting, they must announce the reason for doing so. Now, Chris, would you please call the roll?
Present. Ms. Blair. Present. Ms. Cantu.
Present.
Dr. Olson.
Present.
Ms. Tu.
Present.
Ms. Warren.
Present.
And Chairman Strong.
Present. At this time, we'll step into the public forum. Any member of the public may address and ask questions of the board relating to any matter within the San Diego Water Board's jurisdiction, provided that that matter is not on today's agenda. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to make his or her comments in person or on Zoom. Chris, do we have any cards, any speakers? Nobody online? No one present? All right. And I guess we will proceed to the consent calendar. Or no, we got the board members' comments. First, we will approve the minutes from the last meeting. Has everybody seen them, and does anyone want to move approval?
I'll second.
I'll move approval. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Chris, would you call the roll?
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Ms. Cantu.
Aye.
Dr. Olson.
Aye.
Ms. Tu.
Aye.
Ms. Warren.
Aye.
Chair Strong.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Now, Nicole Morgan, our state liaison, did not make it today, but State Vice Chairman Didi Adamo will fill in for her on Zoom. We have a written report from Nicole. I think everybody's seen that. And do any of our board members have any updates, comments? Nope. Questions?
I have questions for Dave on the executive officer's report, but I can wait until after our
That'll be
state
the
chair
next,
liaison.
yeah. Dee Dee, would you like to, and welcome to our board meeting.
Well, certainly. Thank you, Chair and members of the board. It's good to see you, although unfortunately just remote here. I look forward to an opportunity. I know the board has had some changes since I was there last couple of years ago. So good to see you all. And I recognize you have the written report. So I'll just go over and highlight a few items, starting with our strategic work plan. And so this is something that we do every year. This year, a little bit late. Usually we do it in January, but at our meeting, our last meeting on March 4th, we had an informational item to go through the 2025 draft plan. And really, the exciting thing about this for me is that I've been on the board for 13 years now, and it's been really wonderful to see this plan become more institutionalized, and it improves and evolves. And it's really an opportunity for us to check ourselves. And, you know, if we said something was a priority for completion, did it really turn out that way? And, you know, what needs to be done to make adjustments, et cetera. We really are holding firm to our 4 key priority areas. First of all, access to safe, affordable drinking water and adding in sanitation, which I know Board Member Morgan has been filling you all in about our staff's work on a wastewater needs assessment, and she's been really crucial to that process, really following it closely. Second key thematic priority is to protect and restore watersheds, marine waters, and ecosystems. And then third, increase statewide water resilience in the face of climate change and other threats by expanding and integrating California's water supply portfolio. And then lastly, strengthening relationships, systems, and internal capacity to establish or to accomplish our mission strategically, transparently, equitably, adding that in, of course, and efficiently. And so there's Nicole's provided, you know, a link so that you can pull up that report and go through it in greater detail. And then also last week at our board meeting, we had an update, our annual update on racial equity and our action plan. We had 53 actions prioritized between 2023 and 2025. So this was really an opportunity to hear from all the divisions, how they're doing on progress, you know, where there are some gaps and where there's needed improvement. And so, and I just really appreciate that annual report, you know, hearing from people directly about how they've been impacted and some of the more personal stories. And so I always find that update to be really informative. Also last week, just calling out the annual fee stakeholder meetings that we have. This is a process that we do through our emergency authorities. Every September, we update and adopt a schedule for fees because we are, as you all know, a fee-based organization. And so the area that you all and stakeholders there in Region 9 would probably really want to focus on is the water quality fees. And we also have water rights and then drinking water. And then added in, including in the water rights is, you know, a new fee structure that we have for sustainable groundwater management for those basins that have been placed on probation. And so there's, you know, a lot of interest in all those areas. And what we have is 3 stakeholder meetings throughout the year in order to provide stakeholders with an opportunity to question the numbers, provide their input, and make suggestions as to how fees could be structured, maybe in a more equitable or efficient manner. And so the first round that we have is in early March, and those meetings took place last week, and there will be another round in June. And that's the public is invited to participate, as well as any of you. So that can be pulled up on the Division of Administrative Services website. Okay, let's see here. Integrated report on March 18th, next week, our staff will hold a public hearing to receive oral comments on the draft 303D list for the 2026 California Integrated Report. And for those interested, there will be this public hearing to receive oral comments. And tomorrow, staff will be conducting an urban stormwater infiltration public scoping meeting for the proposed urban stormwater infiltration water quality control policy that will be setting statewide standards for urban stormwater infiltration. The meeting will include a presentation on the proposed policy and an opportunity for participants to provide oral comments to help assist in shaping the environmental documents. Written comments are due on Monday, March 31st. And then also tomorrow, the Safe Drinking Water, Safe and Affordable Fund for Equity and Resilience Advisory Group will be holding a meeting tomorrow. And this meeting is a virtual meeting for those who are interested in joining virtually. And that's all I have, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Do board members have any questions? Not. Thank you, Vice Chairman Adamo. Appreciate it. And with that, I think we will move on to Executive Officer's report.
Thank you.
Morning, Chair Strawn, members of the board. I'll ask if there are questions regarding the report. Board Member Warren, I believe you had a question.
Thank you. I have two questions. First, with respect to the trash boom that was installed, who is responsible for removing the trash and where is it going?
The grantee is the Rural Community Assistance Center, and their subcontractor is Ultraterra, and they are going to be removing the trash as soon as the ground firms up enough and the flows abate enough for them to get out there and do the work. We did have an update from them this Monday. There was some damage to the gravity anchors, especially on the northern side of the channel, where flows from the new Customs and Border Protection bridge and gate system directed the flows over to that side of the river. So they're working on that and we'll have it restored. We recovered 50 tons of trash with the first storm event, and that was not a really large one. It will be very good to see how it behaved in this storm event and how many tons they remove off of this one. And that was the entire purpose of the program, was to test this design and to quantify the amount of trash being removed from the river in each storm events.
So they were able to remove the trash.
They were able to remove and quantify some of it, and they're still proceeding with that. It's been raining again.
Yeah, thank you. And then with respect to the growler crash in the bay, when do we expect to get the results back on not the water quality sampling, but on, and I'm sorry, Dave, I can never pronounce the name of this invasive species correctly, so I'm not going to butcher it in front of everyone, but when can we expect the information back on that?
I don't have a specific date yet, but I expect that we'll be getting more information here during the next month.
Okay.
Dave, to follow on her report, is that trash all going up to Miramar, or?
I believe it's going to the Otay landfill after it's been sorted, quantified, cleaned up, and then sent to the landfill.
Okay, so that project we talked about years ago about using the old quarry down there, that's not.
No, the quarry will be for reclaimed valley sediment, which has been cleaned of trash.
Okay.
That project is also moving forward. They've submitted their report of waste discharge to us, and we'll be reviewing that and preparing waste discharge requirements for the board's consideration probably next calendar year.
Good to hear that's moving forward. Thank you. Any other questions? Betty?
Yes, Dr. Wilson.
Sorry. I'd like to ask about item 3, biological objectives. This is something that this board has worked on for a considerable amount of time. And I noticed that they're going to now have a public workshop on May 6th. And that's being held Do we know the location?
In
where-
Sacramento at the State Water Resources Control Board. It'll be one of their regularly scheduled meetings.
All right. And we'll be all able to tune into that and.
Yes, the
have
staff and I
access.
will be attending in person, and it will be available publicly via Zoom and on the YouTube channel that they simultaneously broadcast on.
And what I didn't see was when they will actually have the hearing on this item.
We believe that will be later in the year, probably in September. We hope as soon as possible. The board adopted the biological objectives basin plan amendment resolution in December 2020. We responded already to 5 rounds of comments on the subject. We believe that the science is the best in the nation and that the approach that the San Diego board has taken with regard to modified channels is the best approach that can also ensure that we attain the goals of the Clean Water Act to restore and maintain the chemical, physical, and biological integrity of the nation's waters. But that will be a matter for the state board to consider. They'll take the evidence from the stormwater agencies and flood control districts, as well as the evidence that we've submitted in this most recent round. And we hope to have an agendized hearing for adoption this calendar year.
And what did it mean when it said it would be reopened in a narrow manner?
Flood control agencies asked to submit additional information regarding the management and maintenance of flood control channels. And so the comment period was reopened to accommodate that. The regional board, and I believe some of the environmental groups also submitted additional information on that subject.
Do you know if those were soft bottom, hard sided or cement sided channel?
That was exactly it. The soft bottom, but reinforced sides were the channels that we were talking about, because we actually removed the concrete side, concrete bottom channels from the objectives.
Well, this is something that this board has been working on for a considerable amount of time. I know the staff have been working on it for a long time, quite diligently. And I see that it's been quite a number of years since it was originally envisioned. And that's one of my considerations. I had one other question. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time. I read, I'm not sure. It was a Senate bill, either 601 or 603. I'm not quite sure of the last number. And it defines some things in water. Amongst was, I don't know if it's additional duties or additional activities for the regional board. Are you familiar with that?
I don't recall that particular bill at this moment, but I also would not want to comment publicly on it. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have offline and refer you to the comments we may have submitted already through the procedure to provide comments to the bill's author and to the governor's office.
Okay, thank you.
This is a
then.
pending bill, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, it is pending. I don't know how far. I just know the date they had to get them in was February 21st. So I got the impression this may have been a late coming, but it was in a news feed about water. So I was interested. Thank you.
I'll queue up my presentation.
If there are no more questions, I think, Dave, you keep the mic and give us an update on the transporter flows.
Thank you. I believe we're loading the presentation I prepared for this morning, and while that's coming up, that presentation doesn't include a graphic, but you did have it in your executive officer's report this month that we have put our website up on the Tijuana River live. And so we'll be updating that as the principal means of providing information to the board and the public on the status of issues in the Tijuana River and transboundary flows. And so your executive officer's report this month is noticeably thinner, and we've saved some trees in the process. We will have other speakers here momentarily today on the subject of human health effects from the transboundary flows. Is the presentation ready? There we go. Next slide. So the staff and I have been continuing to engage with other agencies and members of the public and organizations. I won't go through all of this list, but I want to highlight that we met with the US and Mexico sections of IBWC, their secretariats for Minute 320, which include source control projects in Mexico for sediment, trash, and water quality. And there's an opportunity, especially with Proposition 4 for funding for projects that could be in Mexico, either directly from the state board or through the North American Development Bank. The Bond Act language provides that if it's going through NADBank to Mexico, that is a dollar for dollar match by Mexico for the funds that they might receive from the state of California. There have been 2 meetings of the Tijuana River Working Group. These are lawmakers, state and federal and local, who receive briefings from EPA and IBWC. I've continued to communicate our concern about the nature of the transboundary flows and the lack of transparency in the report that we were promised last year as to the sources of the flows. I have been informally advised that agencies in Mexico have been reviewing that report and taking action on it already to identify and abate some of the flows. And on this week, as I mentioned, we met with the RCAC to talk about the trash boom operation and maintenance. Funding for that continues for the next year and a half. After that, they are hoping to receive funding from NOAA or another grant organization to keep it funding. Proposition 4 can't pay for that one because it's operations and maintenance at this point. This is a demonstration project to inform Project J on the record of decision. So an ultimate Project J might include capital costs that could be covered by this bond act or a later act, but operations and maintenance cannot. But we're good for another year and a half to characterize and capture as much of the trash as possible. Next slide. As you are all well aware, and I'll just recap briefly, we have over 55 water body impairment conditions in the Tijuana River estuary, the river and the coastal waters. Most of them are bacteria and trash, but we've now had 1,189 days of consecutive beach closures. Show me any place else in the state or the country where we've had that situation ongoing. And of course, beach closures are the least of it. Human health impacts that you'll hear more about in a few moments continue. There's almost nightly exceedances of the hydrogen sulfide human health standard of 30 parts per billion. And that has caused significant impacts. There are relief in the form of air filters that are being provided to the community members, but our focus is on source control, identifying and abating those sources. The estuary is in a state of progressive ecological collapse. We've lost all the fish, and I'm currently working on an investigation to do sediment quality objectives in the estuary to look at sediment chemistry, benthic condition, and toxicity. We're working with the Southern California Coastal Water Research Project to prepare a proposal for cleanup and abatement account funds to do that investigation later this spring, and I'll report back to you on that. And of course, there is the trash and debris that we talked about a moment ago. Next slide. For IBWC compliance, we're on the right track at last. The board adopted a time schedule order in 2023. The deadline was set by IBWC itself as August 2024. They were able to attain compliance with the numeric effluent limitations by November of 2024, and they've been maintaining it since then. They have 5 primary sedimentation tanks. They've all been repaired. They're operating, I believe right now, 3 or 4 of them. The other are on standby in case they have problems. We still have some non-effluent violations that we've communicated to them and we're working on. The Binational Technical Committee may be combined with the Binational Core Group meetings that occur about once or twice per year. They could serve both functions. And the Binational Technical Committee is very important for a chance for U.S. agencies and Mexico agencies to meet on the operations and maintenance of the collection system in order to ensure the effective operation of the plant and identify and abate any issues that may be causing or compromising the operation of the plant, as happened in 2021 and 2022. They're also putting together a monitoring plan. We've reviewed it for a quality assurance project plan to ensure that the data is useful. We are providing some feedback, and we hope to see that monitoring begin this summer. We have sent 2 notices of violation regarding the Hollister Avenue pump station bypasses, and we've also issued an investigative order for monitoring that may occur when a bypass occurs again. And we conducted a compliance inspection of the International Treatment Plant, a very thorough, detailed, full-day walkthrough of every component of the plant. And happily, I can report that we do not have any substantial violations as a result of that inspection. Next slide. For the 2025, we still face many challenges. We've had 884 days of continuous river flows. I don't expect that to end anytime soon, but as the new international collector is connected, we may see a resumption of operations of PBCLA in the pump station so that we see far fewer flows and smaller volumes in the river this summer. That would be a big relief. We still have the nightly quality air impacts that I mentioned. And sediment discharges are really problematic, especially the construction associated with the federal highway, especially in Matadero Canyon, but the same things happen to Goat Canyon as well. Very, very large sediment releases on dry weather days, let alone days like today where it's raining with no slope controls, no erosion controls, no sediment basins. All of that sediment is making its way down through Smuggler's Gulch. So they're not operating the canyon collectors right now because they're not intended to operate in wet weather, but they also really don't need to damage the pumps again or lose the surge tanks that they've repaired. I mentioned the beach closure days. In the international collector replacement, IBWC put its foot down very firmly, and I'm very happy to say, with Mexico and ensured that a bypass system in 2 phases would be implemented while they connect that international collector. The old collector is failing, and it has resulted in sewage releases to Stewart's Drain. The new collector will provide 32 million gallons of controlled flow to the treatment plant, so it no longer gets river flows into the treatment plant. It was never intended for that, and a lot of that sediment and debris that damaged the plant came from those flows. So it'll finally provide the right kind of engineering and operation parameters for managing a collection system to ensure that IBWC gets 25 million gallons per day of wastewater, eventually scaled up to 50 million gallons when the plant is expanded, and allowing the remaining flows from PB Sila and Tijuana to be pumped to the coast, about 18 million gallons of which will be treated at the San Antonio de los Buenos wastewater plant. And that plant has been completed, and they're now spinning it up, beginning to pump water through it and test the systems to get the activated sludge plant fully operational, which they hope to see done by April. Next slide. For the priorities going forward, we are working with IBWC and US EPA on an MOU. It is slow going with the new administration change, but the draft MOU has been reviewed by our council, and I'll be sharing it with them shortly for bacterial and trash implementation measures, largely focused on the record of decision projects that I mentioned a few moments ago. We'll be continuing to implement the trash boom, and we are meeting with IBWC monthly and their project contractor on the expansion of the wastewater treatment plant. It's too early to provide you any of the news, but I think we're on a very promising track in terms of the new design. It'll be a far more resilient treatment plant. It'll be a larger treatment plant, but it'll be designed to grow as the need continues to grow. And I discussed a few moments ago Proposition 4 funding. I provided State Board with a list of projects that the recovery team shared. We'll be discussing that next week, and I'll be meeting with State Board again. And I met with Minute 320, the Binational Core Group met in February, and I met with the secretariats, and we're looking at a sediment management plan as one of our top priorities. We have a sediment management plan, but it don't have a sediment abatement plan. And so the next step will be to put together that binationally with Mexico so that we can begin to address some of these sources of sediment, like the construction in Matadero Canyon. Next slide. And that concludes my presentation, unless there are any questions. Yes, Dr. Olson.
Excuse me, about sediment being deposited in the river. And I believe you stated that sediment into the river was continuing during dry periods.
Yes, there was significant runoff from construction activities in Matadero Canyon, especially. In the Tijuana River in Mexico is largely concrete, but there is a fair amount of sediment that gets captured and carried along with the tires into the main channel itself, especially on rainy days.
And so what do you anticipate looking at the months beginning in April and carrying through the summer about whether or not this will be controlled?
It will not be controlled. There are inadequate stormwater BMPs that we would have on any construction site here. They don't have them. We'll see more erosion events. The Mexican agencies reported they're going to build sediment basins once the construction is completed in Matadero Canyon. That will not help us this winter. We always have a lot of sediment in rainy days. It's just going to be a lot worse in Matadero Canyon right now. The other sunshine news, and there is some, is that Congress approved and the president signed the Water Resources Development Act funding last year in December for $200 million. That will go to address the sediment accumulation in the flood control channel. Flood control channel no longer provides 100-year flood control for the communities. The treatment plant is protected on the south side, but on the north side, the levees have been breached. So they will eventually be able to do some excavation and restoration of the flood control channel. That work will be performed by the Army Corps of Engineers.
And will that occur this summer?
No, that will occur some years from now. There will be a very detailed analysis of the design of the excavation, whether they decide to do a whole channel or a partial channel. There is about 16 vertical feet of accumulated sediment in the main channel and the flood control channel since the project was built in 1979.
So if we know that sediment is going to continue past April of this year, then we can anticipate that in the summer there will be a recurrence of odors.
The orders will continue regardless of sediment simply because of the transboundary flows of sewage. What I think we're hoping to see, hoping being the emphasized word, is that with the new international collector connected, they will be able to operate the PBC River diversion system more effectively than they've been able to do the last several years. And although that water will be discharged on the coast untreated, it will be a problem on the coast. It won't be the same problem in people's homes that it is flowing through the Tijuana River itself. The sediment becomes a larger issue during rain events because of amplified flooding effects. So we've lost capacity to control flood flows. Some of the privately built berms failed during the last winter. We're going to see how well the repairs the county made on those this last year hold up. But as I mentioned, the main channel itself no longer has 100-year flood control protection. So we're one or two good atmospheric rivers away from seeing substantial flooding issues again. So perhaps tomorrow, not only here, but also in Mexico. And so the Minute 320 project to address sediment sources, as well as to ultimately support the Army Corps of Engineers excavation of the channel again, is going to be important tasks for us in years ahead.
So am I understanding from what you said then that we don't anticipate odors coming from the Tijuana and impacting civilians?
No, I think we will have odor issues until we actually abate the flows from Mexico, until we no longer have daily flows in the Tijuana River and nightly flows doubling in volume from the daily flows. We will continue to have significant odor issues.
So then is it possible for the regional board to request from OHIA to look at impacts of H2S on people under 17, since the data in that area appears to be extremely sparse?
Certainly, the staff and I can reach out to OWIHA through Cali, PA, and ask that consideration be made. You will also hear a presentation momentarily from the county's interim public health officer. It might be a good question to share with her and ask if there's a way for the county and the city and the regional board to partner up on that request.
Yes, I think that's an excellent idea. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I have one last thing, and I almost forgot, very important. I would like to ask you to join me in welcoming 4 new staff members of ours. Tijuana River is so distracting. I'm happy to welcome our engineering geologist, Catherine Brennan. Catherine, are you here? Thank you, Catherine. And environmental scientist, Haley Sue. And our environmental scientist, a graduated student assistant of ours, Ariel Cutter. Welcome. And Adrian Hinkle, engineering geologist. We are very, very happy to have them on our team. As you may or may not know, during the last year, we were required to maintain about 18 vacancies on our staff out of a staff of about 73 total. It was a significant impairment of our ability to bring work to you. So you have some light agendas. That's, I guess, the silver lining in this. But we now have the opportunity to bring new staff into our office, train them up properly to bring you the important work that today is now more important than ever has been. California faces significant challenges in stepping into the shoes of the federal government in some areas, most notably the recent Supreme Court decision, and we're going to need all hands on deck. So I really do appreciate the opportunity to welcome new staff, and we'll have a few more for you to meet next month. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Yen, I believe you have your hand up.
Yes, Yen.
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, I want to also welcome the new staff. Very excited for all you. Dave, on the last item that you mentioned, the Minute 320 meetings, can you remind me who you meet with? And you said that was a monthly, correct?
So yes, the Minute 320 is a minute to the 1944 treaty, and it's an informal amendment that both countries agree to. And Minute 320 is a framework to address sediment, water quality, and trash. The 2 secretariats were appointed by the commissioners, one from Mexico, one from the US. And I meet with them regularly to talk about projects that the Binational Core Group have already identified, about 27 or so, mostly in Mexico. And how do we take those now and begin funding them. I did not mention in my report, but thank you for the chance to recap. We did seek funding to support them through a report on the projects that they've selected. The binational core group meets about 2 or 3 times per year. Those are executive level members of both countries. And then there's a work group that meets much more frequently. Those projects will be reviewed, a screening level feasibility analysis will be provided, and funding recommendations will be included in that. The due date for our proposals for contractors on that is tomorrow, I believe, and we plan to select a contractor post haste and have the work start by April. We have to be concluded by next February. So that's going to be an important part. But the binational core group meetings and the binational work group meetings are at the direction of IBWC commissioners, Haner and Resendez. And so they will proceed as we go forward. We are also meeting with, and it's covered under minute 328, with IBWC and EPA and their consultant Stantec on the treatment plant design, which is project number 1 on both of those lists, record of decision and minute 328. So there is some overlap on those, particularly when we look at source protections for the treatment plant and source control for sediment and trash in Mexico.
Thank you, Dave. At this time, I'm going to ask if there's anybody in the audience here that would like to comment, if you would come up and identify yourself. Any questions, Dave, on this particular report? Nope. Good. Then we will move on to the consent calendar. Unless there's a request from the board or the public to comment or for an item to be removed from the consent calendar, I will call for a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar as is.
You need to do it separately.
Do we have to do?
Before
each-
that's
Oh,
done,
Go ahead.
I would like to say on item 4, I am on the board of directors for the Santa Margarita Water District. The Santa Margarita Water District is a member agency of South Orange County Water Authority, which is subject to item number 4, and therefore will be abstaining.
Thank you, Betty. We'll call for I need a motion.
I so move the consent agenda.
Thank you.
And just to be clear, we're just voting on item 4 right now.
Just item.
So the motion.
Okay.
board
I will
member-
amend to move item 4.
So seconded.
Chris,
Ms. Blair,
Aye.
Ms. Cantu,
Aye.
Ms. Chu,
Aye.
Ms. Warren,
Aye.
and Chair Strawn.
aye.
Motion carries.
And we will repeat the process for item number 5.
I'll move approval. Item number 5, NPDS amendment
Second.
for songs.
Ms. Blair seconded.
Okay. Chris, would you call the roll?
Ms. Blair,
Aye.
Ms. Cantu,
Aye.
Dr. Olson,
Aye.
Ms. Chu,
Aye.
Ms.
Aye.
Warren.
Aye.
And Chair Strawn.
Aye. Moving right along. At this time, we have a presentation, our item 6, a presentation from the Community Assessment for Public Health Emergency Response, CASPER, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Investigation in the Tijuana River Valley. Dr. Kadakia, did I pronounce that right? Welcome.
Thank you. It's quite a large microphone you have here. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Chair Stroon, members of the board, thank you for having me here today. I'm Dr. Kadaki. I'm the interim public health officer for the County of San Diego, and I'd like to introduce my colleague as well. This is Heather Bonoma, who is the Director of Environmental Health and Quality for the County of San Diego. And we're here to present to you on the Tijuana River Valley sewage emergency and a study that we conducted with the CDC along with the county as a joint partner. And in short, it's called a CASPER. So we are going to talk about some of the results. The study, I'm sorry, is this the clicker? to move slides. Perfect. We're going to go over some of the study highlights. This was a study that focused on the health and human impacts related to the sewage crisis. It includes physical health as well as mental health and some of the concerns for individuals living or working in the Tijuana River Valley, as well as some of the actions that the county has taken, and then just a summary of additional actions that we are conducting. So we have been communicating. This study was conducted back in October of 2024 over a 3-day period. We had numerous CDC staff as well as county staff, SDSU graduate students from their MPH program, as well as UCSD preventive residents who were all out on foot conducting the study over a 3-day period over multiple times of the day. And this was a household to household study. We have provided these results in numerous forums, and although I'm giving you an abbreviated version today, I do want to make you aware that we do have a website that has the full report as well as information which you can toggle through to look at specifics around water concerns or health concerns. And so just for the public's awareness, the website is the South Region Health Concerns. In addition, we have provided briefings to the city managers of the affected communities, including Imperial Beach, Coronado, as well as San Diego. We have been meeting with local, state, and elected officials over this matter to provide this information in the hopes that it helps to additionally bring additional funding that's needed to repair the plant, as well as providing information around the health concerns. We've also met with the Tijuana River Valley Task Force, who's been involved, as well as participating with them in terms of moving action items forward, and have presented this data as well to them. We also have been meeting with the South Bay Schools superintendents in a monthly meeting to review this information, to receive feedback and provide public health guidance in terms of students that are having to go to school in these conditions. And we've developed some specific guidance for those superintendents. We've also been working with South Bay federally qualified health centers, as well as healthcare providers in the South Bay that are seeing residents that have been impacted by these health concerns, as well as community health workers who have been going out and providing information and linkage to care for individuals that are affected. So now I'm going to move into the actual results. So just a little bit about the methodology. This is a household level. So interviewers did go out to houses to ask a series of questions in the survey. And these questions in the survey has been used in other different types of disasters or crises. For instance, after an earthquake, after a major environmental impact, even after the Flint water crisis at Casper was conducted, as well as the Deepwater Horizon crisis and Hurricane Harvey. So just an idea of the ways in which this survey has been conducted, and these have been conducted post-emergency in order to gather immediate concerns from a community in order to provide any additional public health information, education, or resources. And so the area outlined in gray is the area that is the sampling frame, and the areas that are in pink are the selected clusters. So this is a cluster study in which an entire area of effect is determined. And in order to have a representative model, this sampling represents the 40,911 households that are in the affected area. And we sampled 30 of these regions, and then 7 of those houses in each of those regions to have a representative study sample. So now I'm going to go through some response rates. So our foot teams went to 480 households. Yes. Ms.
I have a quick question. On your diagram, can you show me where
Sorry.
Palm Avenue is?
Let me go back. I won't be able to give you the specifics on where Palm Avenue is.
Well, it's a major thoroughfare that
Mhm.
leads.
This was all of
between-
Imperial Beach, basically down from the Coronado Bay down. The sampling area is not selected by the county. It was actually selected by the CDC after reviewing the zip codes and households in the areas in which there were concerns, and they determined the sampling frame.
Maybe you can show for me on the map the Nestor area.
Yeah, so Nestor area. Is there a pointer, a clicker here? I can walk up, I guess, to the map. Yes, if you have a pointer, that would be useful. Thank you. I don't know. Are you able to show me how to work this pointer? Okay.
I don't know how to use it. Oh dear. Can you show me Nestor again? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yes, this is the area.
All right. Now, there's a high school that's located, that's on one side of,
A very elementary.
no, it's a high school. Yeah, there's also a high school.
Yes.
Was that,
Right up.
was that area included or not?
Yes, I can't give you the specific addresses, but it was included and all the way up to the Carroll Beach Pier. So the entire Tijuana River Valley area.
Well, while you were there, I'm concerned, it looks like at the very up corner, it looks like you ended there at the Coronado Cays and didn't get up into that big Navy housing area that's just,
No, it did end up here. Now because that's federal land, we aren't able to survey on the Navy base.
I think we need to get them to do it themselves because there's
That's
a lot
correct.
of kids in there. There's a school and
Correct. I don't have jurisdiction in the
they're
federal
very, they're very
area.
close to the beach there too. So.
Correct. We wanted to make sure to get to the beaches. And I'll speak about an additional study that we also conducted for the beaches.
EPA about the Navy getting sick.
So again, we went to 480 households, so that's a 39% contact rate. 334 of those households answered the door, which is a 56% cooperation rate. And 189 households completed the full interview. That's a 90% completion rate, which we needed in order for the study to be validated. So we were able to have a validated study with the appropriate amount of interviews conducted. So I'll speak specifically now on the household concern. So the top household concern was around at 81%, the health of the household, followed by property at 8.4%, followed by others, including concerns over contact with contaminated water or air, and then 3.5% reported that they did not have concerns around the Tijuana River Valley. When we asked about contact with contaminated, either direct contact with the river water in the past month, 7.7% of the households did answer that they did have direct contact with the river. In terms of direct contact with beach water, contaminated beach water, 16.2% did have contact. However, 65% of the households surveyed had taken additional steps to avoid either the river area or the beaches. There were additional actions taken by households to reduce the sewage smell. At least 72% of households reported closing their windows. 52% reported using either candles, incense, or other ways to make the air smell different. 49% used air fresheners and deodorizers. 35% did use air purifiers or air filters. 32% were using ammonia or bleach, believing that if they could clean the counters or clean areas, they would be able to rid themselves of the odor smell. 15% either chose to do other items that they did not list. But of these households, at least one or more actions were taken by 89% to reduce the sewage smell. And 66% of those who did take any additional steps said that it either helped sometimes or it did not help at all. There has been significant impact on their daily lives, with 34% reporting some changes and 25% reporting many changes. And when we specifically asked about outdoor activities as a public health department, we're concerned when there is not enough physical activity. And so we did see some significant decreased outdoor activities in terms of being outdoors at the beach. 66% did not go to the beach. 61% reduced time outside. 49% were not going to parks, and 28% were no longer gardening. There were impacts to drinking water. When asked about their sources of drinking water, we were told 67% were using bottled water, while 21% were using this tap water, the city water. However, 28.2% had changed the source of their drinking water since the crisis began. Anecdotally, we received data from households letting us know that they were actually going across the border to fill water bottles or buy water bottles on the Mexico side and bringing them back because they had a belief that the water would be safer to drink there versus the tap water. Many reported that they were no longer gardening because they were worried about using the water to grow their fruits and vegetables. And so they were no longer eating from their gardens or using water to water their gardens. I'll speak a little bit about in terms of communication. We were asking about how to get information out best to these communities and what would be their most trusted source for accurate information. 55% did report that they trusted the public health department. 43% reported family and friends as their most trusted source of information, while 42% trusted their doctors or nurses. 38% believed other members of the household. 30% believed county officials. 30% believed the mayor, 29% believed city officials, 23% believed the governor, while 9% believed a spiritual leader. However, 9% of the households interviewed did not trust information from anyone.
What about from who they carry their water bills?
So that was not part of this survey, but there's multiple water agencies in the selected area. So there's Otay, Sweetwater, City of sorry.
While that was not part of the survey, there's multiple water agencies that serve this area. So there's Sweetwater, Otay, the City of San Diego, and California American that all serve this area for drinking water.
And during this time period, was there anything done? Anything done on television that talked about the safety of the drinking water?
Yeah, that's a great question. And let me first thank some of the DDW staff, Sean Sturchy and Joseph Guzman. They were really instrumental in helping us get the word out about the results of this survey to those water agencies. We did have multiple meetings with the water agencies.
No, I mean, while the event was occurring. Before you
while the
did
survey was happening?
Before the survey, while the people were experiencing these odors that caused them to change their behavior. I mean, people understood certainly that it was not an advantageous situation. So there were no television.
I'm not clear on your question.
Okay.
Do you mind repeating?
All right, oftentimes there are public notices on television. Either you can have a negative public notice, such as boil your tap water, but you can also have positive public notices that say your drinking water is safe. Since 28% of the people changed to bottled water, they obviously didn't feel that. So I'm trying to determine if any information was given to them during that time period, telling them that the water was safe.
Yeah, so that would be under the authority of the water agencies that I just mentioned to do that. And we did meet with them following this, and they indicated they have some. Each of the water agencies has a little bit different public communication and outreach. So some were putting information in their water bills, while others did do some things on TV. But certainly this is one of the things that we stressed as an outcome needs to be done in more capacity to ensure that people know all of the testing that goes on with drinking water and that their tap water is safe.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to go on to some of the household beliefs. We had 92% believe the quality of the river water was not okay. 90% believe the quality of the nearby ocean water was not okay, while 77% believe the quality of their air was not okay. In terms of particular opinions on the crisis, at least 98% felt the sewage is causing air and water pollution. 96% felt that the sewage was causing a bad odor. 89% believed that the sewage crisis was getting worse. 80% believed the quality of life was being negatively impacted, while 71% did not feel that the tap water was safe, and 67% believed their health had worsened. There was a little bit of a split between whether the community felt safe to live in, while 53% felt the community was still safe to live in, 44% did not, and 88% did not feel that the area cleanup was sufficient enough. We'll focus now on physical health questions. 35% reported that the overall health of their household was either fair or poor. 70% improved when leaving the area, and 17% had not tried leaving the area to see if there was an improvement. But of those reporting health concerns, 69% reported that at least one member of their household had a health symptom during the crisis. 45% of those of the 69%, 45% reported that one member with the health symptom the past month experienced either 80% were headaches, 72% nausea, upset stomach, cough, irritated throat, dizziness, shortness of breath, fatigue, or migraines. These were the most reported symptoms. In terms of behavioral health and mental health, at least
a quick question on
yes.
the last slide. It said the title said caused by the sewage crisis, but when you spoke, you said that this percentage indicated there was a health system during the crisis. Do you know the specific question that was asked, whether it was
This was in the month preceding the survey. So in the month preceding the survey, did you have health symptoms that you felt were caused by sewage crisis? These were belief systems.
So the
that were being
question
asked
was
about.
specifically caused by, not caused during.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Correct. And again, these were not, sorry, let me go back. These were not symptoms that were evaluated by a physician. This was the household's belief on whether they were having symptoms or not. So 32%, when we talk about mental health or behavioral health, 32% did report that they felt unsafe in their home, that their home felt unsafe to live in, while 65% did still feel that their home was safe. In terms of the impact on household stress during for the crisis, 34% reported they were feeling a little bit of stress, and 24% reported they had a lot of stress related to the crisis. In terms of signs of emotional distress, at least 65% of the households reported having one or more of a sign of emotional distress, and that included physical symptoms at 49%, increased anxiety or worry at 38%, a lack of energy at 34%, less time with friends at 30%, sadness or depression, feeling alone or isolated, and feelings of numbness. While we also looked at some behavioral health indicators, and 65% of the households reported at least having one or more of the symptoms of either trouble sleeping, mood change, difficulty concentrating, agitated behavior, loss of appetite, or increased alcohol use. There were also adaptive changes. At least 57% of the households reported having a different transition, either taking a different route to school or work. They had considered moving. Some had missed work because of the crisis. Some had changed a job or school location. So again, just reviewing the key household experiences, at least 87% are somewhat or very concerned about the sewage crisis, while 81% are the most concerned about their health of their household members. 70% did have one or more disruptions to their household life, 77% believed that the quality of the air was not okay, and 71% did not believe their household tap water was safe to drink. 65% did have one or more worsening health conditions that they reported in the past month. And 58% reported overall stress levels had increased, 63% reporting at least one or more signs of emotional distress, and 65% reporting at least one or more signs of a behavioral health indicator. Yes.
So, as I recall from reading the study, you did not go into asking them what the specific health effect was that had been worsened.
No, it could be any, it was dependent upon them.
Right. And so
because
we
many
don't have
people would
any
have chronic
categories.
health conditions that worsened. Yes. So now I'm just going to go over some of the actions that we have taken. Once we received even the preliminary results, we started to meet with different agencies to ask for actions, as well as some other actions that we've taken. So I want to just review that. So for many months now, we have been collaborating and meeting with various agencies in the South Bay, including the South Bay Schools District, the superintendents and their leadership, as well as the Board of Education, working with them to develop specific guidance, including around the air warning system, and working with our air pollution control district as well. In addition to that, we have been meeting with South Bay healthcare clinics and federally qualified health centers to determine what were some of the health effects that they might be seeing, and hearing from them in terms of how patients might be affected, but also being able to provide resources and linkage to care for individuals that are coming to their health systems. We also have been conducting an all-agency meeting with local, state, and federal partners. We have the local, state, and federal partners listed here that have been participating. We did have to take a pause because of the federal communication pause, but now that federal agencies are starting to communicate again, we are restarting those all agency meetings for the report out on each of these agencies and how they are working on the sewage crisis. Yes.
Did you meet with Centers for Disease Control?
Yes, they are listed here. That's the National Center for Environmental Health, as well as the Agency of Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. They're part of the CDC.
And did you get a reading, since water outbreaks are considered to be 2 or more cases? You had considerably more, but this was water that went to air. Did they have any opinion on that?
Are you talking about?
Okay, Center for Disease Control looks at waterborne outbreaks
Yes.
as when 2 people or more are affected. All right, there are many more than 2 people affected. However, this was an indirect effect, most likely from the air, right? But it came from the water, went into the air. So it's sort of like a vector-borne disease, only it's an airborne disease. So did you ask them if they had an opinion on that? That's all.
So the California Department of Public Health did review, I think you're referring to a particular study, correct? For Kim Prother's study from Scripps Oceanography.
Well, there was a study that looked at all sorts of air
Yes.
constituents, but I'm asking specifically about the Centers for Disease Control, which would look at waterborne outbreaks.
So
And this is not what you would normally classify as a waterborne outbreak, but the water certainly was the cause for the odor, which probably.
The sewage as the cause for the odor, and the sewage being in contaminating water.
The sewage diluted in the water. Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's two different things you're referring to there, because a recreational water illness or an outbreak that you're kind of referring to, the 2 or more people, the California Department of Public Health is who works with the county health officer.
But it's also
and we monitor
drinking
that.
water. There were a lot of complaints about drinking water. People stopped drinking their water because they thought it was contaminated.
Correct. And we did, I'm going to review that in the next few
All right,
slides that we've just jumped ahead of ourselves, but we did meet with all of the drinking water agencies. And I'm just going to skip to that slide so you can see, hopefully we can answer the question. So I did send a letter to the state water board, and we did meet with the state water board as well as our regional, our executive director and other members. of the Regional Water Board, including the Division of Drinking Water, because we did have concerns that this was a major concern that individuals were not drinking their water. So we asked for the water companies to educate and provide proactive media outreach to provide their drinking water test results, since we know that they're routinely testing. We also asked for increased frequency of the testing of their drinking water and to provide those results to the public. They did state that they were providing information. However, we suggested that there should be more robust and transparent information. So as a public health officer, I could make that request, but they do need to work with their state water board and the regional water board in order to be able to do this. We have met with CalAm, as my colleague said. We've also met with the other regional water agencies at least a few times in order to ask for this messaging. They wanted to put joint messaging together and put that out there. And so we continue to meet with them and ask them to provide that messaging as well as those results publicly and transparently in various forums.
Was it outside the scope of the survey to ask why people had concerns about drinking water?
These are the same questions that are asked in all of the other Casper studies. So we did not change the data set. And so again, I mentioned the Flint water crisis.
Sure.
So the same data
That
set.
makes sense in Flint.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense here.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to understand. Like it's an interesting data point, but it's not reflective of on the ground. So I'm wondering how we got there. But that's
Correct.
You didn't ask that question.
No, I didn't ask that question. We asked what was already input into the Casper.
So there's no flexibility in Casper to modify the questions to make it
No.
relevant to the on the ground emergency.
It is an interesting data point that speaks to this is such a complex issue and there's so much information and the public is confused, right?
Right.
And
That's what the
so-
disconnect is really interesting because there's no version of this where people are getting drinking water from the Tijuana River in California. And so
Right.
it's like, it's such a failing on someone's part that's the issue. But
Well, there needs
there's
to be
no
messaging,
data.
right? There needs to be messaging to the public in terms of their drinking water and the test results. And the companies are testing, they're doing routine testing and surveying all of those areas and showing that the water is safe. But that messaging is not reaching these households.
Well, I don't even think it's a question of testing. It's just, it's a misconception and understanding.
Correct. There are a
So-
lot of misconceptions around this, as well as some of the health concerns. We do a very robust syndromic surveillance where we actually get data from 18 emergency rooms and all the healthcare systems. And we were looking for increased gastrointestinal illnesses, all of the symptoms of which we have not seen increases in our syndromic surveillance. So in particular.
Sorry, that's not.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant, but the misconception is different. And that's what I'm confused about. Anyway, we can talk about it another day.
Well, I think it's pretty clear to understand what happened. The drinking water people believed this was not their problem. Sewage treatment people, at least on our side, I don't believe that they knew. And it's kind of an interesting outcome. Because normally you have a direct cause. In other words, you drink water and you get sick. Not so much you smell the water. That was more, thought about a long time ago with THMs and things like that. It's more, this is sort of a new concept. And that's why I thought it was important for you to communicate with CDC, because the health effects that you would find with this kind of outbreak would not be the same type you would expect if it came directly from drinking water. You're going to have more respiratory
Sewage
issues.
contaminated water, we'd expect to see gastrointestinal illnesses. And so we have not seen an increase in that, right? So if the drinking water that they were drinking was contaminated, we would expect to see an increase.
Or if they'd gone in the river a lot and been contacted through the river or
Right.
through the beach. I mean, and it was clear people stayed away from that, although a few
Correct.
people did, but only 7.7%, I believe, from your data showed that they went into the
It was
river.
16% for the beach and 7% for the river.
Yes,
Correct.
so it was a small percentage, so it might be kind of hard to catch.
Correct.
gastro-
65% avoided both areas.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is this is one of the first times, it's interesting to see, where you're getting an indirect cause of illness, which would be related to respiratory or breathing or maybe
Yes.
making heart conditions worse.
Correct.
But the
And
cause comes from the pollution in the water. And that's why I say in the water and not
Mhm.
referring to the pollutant itself.
Correct. We were receiving reports of individuals anecdotally reporting they had nausea or other symptoms. And although we couldn't link it to data anecdotally, as in the survey, they are still reporting that they're feeling those symptoms. But I understand your point. Should I go back?
Celeste, would you like to comment or ask questions?
Yes, we've moved on a little bit, but I think it's important. You have a fairly comprehensive list of agencies and institutions that you've shared these results with. I think in the nature of this situation, it would be really important to augment that list to include elected officials, and I'm talking about state and federal elected officials. So our federal senators to Washington, D.C., most of the congressmen down here, congresspeople are very familiar, but I think it's something that needs to be on the radar of the entire California delegation. And then at the state level, starting with our governor on down to our elected officials in Sacramento. When it comes right down to this, what we really need is additional funding. And the only way we get additional funding is through the allocation and the support of those elected officials. So I would recommend and request that you share these with specific people, elected officials, in addition to the institutions you've listed. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. We have shared these results with the state congressional elected officials as well as the federal elected officials, and not just one time. We've actually met quite a few times to relay this information, our specific concerns around the Tijuana Valley sewage crisis.
That's great. Thank you.
I did also want to note that there was the California congressional delegation did request a petition to the CDC and the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, the request was to look at public health impacts of wastewater contamination in the Tijuana River Valley and the surrounding communities. This was a successful petition, and they did reach out to the county as well as the Air Pollution Control District for data as well as to work on this petition. The petition was approved on January 8th. Due to the federal communication pause, we were not able to communicate with them, and they now have recently started communicating again. So we'll be able to have a better idea in terms of what the federal agency's plan is in terms of the response. In terms of the mental health concerns, this was also a significant concern for us, and we presented these results to the Behavioral Health Services county department, and they developed some education and health promotion. And when we conducted a second study, which I'm going to just briefly mention, we were able to, in real time, then pass out these resources as well as linkage to care at the same time and provide information on mental health resources, given the information that we had learned from the CASPER on stress and mental health concerns. And then we did lean into, again, with the South Bay providers, using them as trusted messengers to speak with their patients, to identify specific health concerns from their patients who are living in this area and affected, and able to then develop resources specifically that could be given out through these trusted messengers as healthcare providers to their patients. We're also working on a surveillance system, gathering surveillance from these federally qualified health centers and South Bay healthcare providers, since their information doesn't necessarily get incorporated in syndromic surveillance, which is emergency room and hospital data, but we'd also like to collect this data when individuals are going to their primary care physician to have a better idea of what they're seeing. There were some pet health concerns regarding, again, concern about pet illness or pet death. We did reach out to the Humane Society in our South region. We do have a One Health team, which is veterinarians plus epidemiologists. And so this team has been working with the Humane Society as well as veterinarians in the South Bay to look into any potential concern of cases. So far, we're not receiving any report back of any pets that have been affected by the sewage crisis, in particular with particular diagnoses, nor have we received any report back of any pet deaths. But we continue to monitor that. And then I'll just mention the Independent Air Pollution Control District is conducting air purifier distributions, and they do have a current air purifier distribution that is ongoing currently. We've provided that information as well to these healthcare providers in the South Bay as well as the schools so that they can receive air purifiers. We're also working with UCSD in a predictive modeling system where we are trying to develop forecasting for when there might be air odor events or air pollution events so that we can warn residents that they may need to stay indoors that day. They may need to change what they might have planned. This is similar to how in fires and wildfires, there have been predictive modeling so that individuals who might have, for instance, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or another type of lung disease are alerted that the air pollution would be bad that day because of a wildfire event or other air event, and then they could make be able to stay home and protect themselves so that they don't have any further exacerbation of their illness. So this is something that we're working on with UCSD. And then we did conduct a second survey called an ACE survey. It's assessment on chemical exposures. This was partnered with ATSDR, the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. These were individual surveys. So the difference between this and the CASPER survey was that this was conducted with individuals living and working in the Tijuana River Valley with the specific concerns around contact to water, either to the beaches or to the river. And we have over 2,150 surveys completed, and ATSDR is now doing the analysis. And we talked about that. And then again, I just mentioned we have a dashboard where all this information as well as the full report is available, and you'll be able to have all of that information. And I believe that's it. And so any other questions? Yes.
Just wanted to, did you happen, were you able to overlay at all the readings that came in for hydrogen sulfide and the areas that you surveyed?
So the Air Pollution Control District is a separate agency from the County of San Diego, but they would be the best resource. And I do know that they are now actively collecting data and working on being able to plot that, but we could certainly relay that question on behalf of your board and have them contact you.
And also, I looked at OHIA, which has very little or no information on children. Have you talked to them about maybe putting together something for children? This is sort of unusual. The levels recorded at schools were unusually high. And therefore could be of concern. I wondered if you had reached out to ask them specifically about children.
Right. This would also fall under the Air Pollution Control District and the Air Pollution Control Officer, which.
So they have to reach out.
Right. But we are able to work with them, and we do have meetings with them. So we can certainly make that suggestion and to reach out in terms of.
I think it would be very useful. I tried to look up about impacts on children. It was very hard to find any information. Usually you can find medical reviews on subjects pretty easily. It is not easy to find it on impacts because these were quite high levels and normally you just don't see them in the environment.
Board Member Olson, you asked earlier in the meeting.
Dr. Olson, I'll just add, we did reach out to the California breathing program to see what data they had in terms of pediatric asthma or information, because they collect that for the state. But their information, their data was not any different than the syndromic surveillance that we've been collecting for asthma or chronic lung disease. So we did look to see if there was any increases, but we have not found that that yet. But again, that's syndromic surveillance and the California Breathing Program. Also, their data sets lag behind about a year to 2 years. So it wasn't as current as we would like.
And when you say you look, I'm trying to think about what I would think would happen is it's not that you suddenly get asthma, but if you have asthma, you may have
An exacerbation.
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly. Thank you.
Correct.
Needed
And
that word. Really that
that's what we were looking for. And again, their data lags, so it won't be as current, but the syndromic surveillance is in real time. And that's why we've been looking to see that if the idea being that if there is a severe asthma exacerbation, most likely those
Well, then
individuals
they
are going to
the
go to the
hospital,
emergency room. Correct.
But it might not have been that severe. I mean, that's
Correct.
why, but certainly particularly for children where you could have long-term effects and damage to the lungs that you wouldn't necessarily see in adults.
Right. There's not any real data on that.
Yes.
And there does need to be, I feel, many more studies, including long-term effects. We don't know what the long-term effects are of, the continuous sewage exposure.
Well, we are looking into, and then I can have our executive officer, David Gibson, speak further, but we are looking into the ability to write to OHIA and say maybe, because they do literature reviews, and so putting something together that specifically addresses this kind of issue with children, since it's very unusual. This is the first time I've ever heard of anything like this.
Correct. There have only been 7 Casper studies that have been done in the state of California, and not that many nationwide. And that's why we felt, given the decades-long sewage crisis, that it was important that a federal agency like the CDC be here to hear from residents directly about the impacts and be able to then, quantitate that data so that elected officials as well as others to be able to take action, knowing that we are seeing direct results reported by these individuals that are living in these households in the affected region.
Well, I do believe yesterday the administrator for EPA, the federal administrator for or secretary for EPA did say that the sewage needed to stop going in the river from Mexico.
Yes.
But I sort of referred it to Dave, if you wouldn't mind.
That's all right. Excuse me, Dr. Olson, Dr. Kodaki, thank you. You mentioned earlier contacting OWIHA, asking them to do an investigation. I'm happy to make that request through channels through Cal EPA, which oversees both the water boards and OWIHA. I think it would be a stronger request if it was also carried by the County of San Diego and the Air Pollution Control District and other agencies. So I will put this on our agenda for the recovery team meeting next week and ask if there's a consensus on draft language that we might put together to send that request up. I do have to work through Cal EPA. They like to be in the loop on these requests, but while I'm getting that loop established, we can open up the dialogue in terms of what we want to ask for and how we want to ask for it and what would be useful. While we want to document what has happened, I think we all share the common concern that we don't want this to happen again. And we want to be able to properly inform agencies and officials in Mexico, as well as in California, the risks that we face when we have these long-term flows of sewage uncontrolled from multiple points, and how we can prevent that through the expansion of the treatment plant and other infrastructure. But I think the emphasis on the investigation needs to be not just what happened, but what are the risks of it happening again if that flow does in fact resume. It has happened before and it's happening now. And since July 2021, we've had daily flows of sewage, and that is not good for anybody in the communities in Tijuana or in Imperial Beach.
I also think this would be good to mention in the all agency call to be able to gather all those partners that are already at the table for this type of effort.
Thank you. We'll do that.
Yeah, we would really like your help on this because we think that, at least I think your study is very good. I was very interested though in the term Casper. I read what it stood for. Forgive me, I don't remember now what it stood for, but this was a self-reporting study where people self-report. I wondered, the way it sounded like the Casper study had found a means to make those studies more robust than they had been previously, self-reporting studies, not Casper's, previously looked upon by epidemiology journals and the like. I wondered if you had a comment on that.
Well, the reason why it was conducted in the way that it was, with the cluster sampling was to try to be able to capture, it would be impossible to go to 40,000
Oh,
households.
no, and that's not what I'm
Yeah.
referring to. I'm referring to that generally the epidemiology journals
Mhm.
don't like self-reporting.
Correct, yes.
So I wondered, it seemed to me from what the report said that the Casper study was a more robust way of approaching self-reporting than had been done historically, as one would see in the literature.
Correct, and a way to try to capture anecdotal data, right? And so this was part of the reasoning behind the Casper. But I do understand what you're saying in terms of epidemiological studies.
What is it better? I'm trying to, I don't know.
For self-reporting, it is a method. It is a method that was adapted from the WHO, and they were doing this type of methodology in a larger capacity for when there were a global event occurring, for instance, like the monkeypox event occurring in East Africa. They would use this Casper study in that way to try to capture anecdotal data that they're receiving, because there's not necessarily data that's being reported into a syndromic surveillance system, but to try to capture what is happening. It's mostly done in terms of trying to determine additional public health actions that can be taken based on what's being reported back, and usually after an emergency when we may not have robust systems set up to respond to residents right away.
Yin, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the presentation. I have two quick questions. First one is, in terms of your dashboard that you have, do you have a way to indicate what is the traffic level? Obviously, the residents of South Bay is very interested in your study and so forth. And then I'll let you answer this, and then I'll ask the second question.
Yes, that's a question for our communications team, and they are able to track website footprint and how many are coming. But we also push this information out in several ways through social media, as well as directly to those households, but then also in multiple languages, including Spanish.
Yeah. And then my second question, kind of relating to the first one, you mentioned with your meeting with the county behavioral health and other information that you provided so that they can come up with a plan, those kind of information, as well as the water district explaining and educating the public that their drinking water do not come from the Tijuana River. Would that be put into the website? Because I'm assuming the residents are interested in this study and they would go back to this website to get information, and we would be able to provide not only the study itself, but follow-up information about educating the public about some of their concerns.
We did ask the water companies to develop that messaging. We wanted them to be able to provide the messaging that they would like, and which the county can then amplify and put on our website. So that's what they are working on to provide to us, so that we can put that information.
And board member two,
amplify.
I've also referred the matter to Darren Polhemus, the director of the Drinking Water Division, and his staff, who are very well aware of the issue. And so they are also, I believe, talking with Cal American, and they may ultimately address some of the public communications on the safety of the drinking water and the confusion with the transboundary flows. But that'll be up to state board to decide how to work on that with Cal American.
Do we have any other questions?
I think she's still speaking, but she's on mute.
Sorry, that's excellent, Dave. I appreciate that communication and movement on that end. May I just say that let's call them water districts, because when we call them company, the public will have a perception that these are private water companies, and I think the trust level will be even less.
Sure. Thank you for that correction.
Well, I want to thank you for your report. It's timely and it's very important to us. It's obviously from the earlier discussions, you know, how deeply involved we are with this whole issue. I'm concerned, I guess, a couple things, and my fellow board members have already touched on several of them. One is that, yeah, when you talk about water quality and they bring out, we test this, we test that, that goes right over most people's head. First off, they don't understand the testing and they don't necessarily believe it. Telling them that their water does not come from the Tijuana River is a basic, fundamental piece of information that has to be out there. Tell them where the water's coming from. And I know that's not your job, but the water districts down there need to understand that they're not talking to other water quality people, they're talking to the public. In the same vein, the results of your study are really important. But I get the sense that most of this is being communicated to all the other agencies, state, federal, county, city. Celeste said it best, I think. The solution to the problem is funding. And for years, this problem has festered because everybody east of the I-15 didn't really care about surfers not being able to go to the beach every day. And that's how it was being portrayed in the public media, as well as online, all of the newspapers and whatever. And I think that allowed the political contingent to basically put it out of the area. They still don't want to consider it an emergency. This information needs to be out publicly in every way we can get it out. So I appreciate all your work, and I think it's really important. We'd like to stay abreast of this going forward, maybe another information item or at least a discussion in your report, Dave, going forward. But we really appreciate your work and keep it up and get this information out as far as we can get it out. Thank you. Oh, with that, if there's no other question, oh, you got a question, go ahead.
I just have one question. It's probably. So it sounds like, you know, we have all this great information that's anecdotal and it's compiled in as statistically in a way that, you know, you can do for anecdotal data. And yet then when you look for increased emergency room visits, you know, some hard data figures, then you're not finding that data to back up the anecdotal data that. So I guess my question is, in the conversation, and maybe this question is also for Dave, you know, in your all constituency, all stakeholder conversations, in our conversations with people across the border, with funders, do you have any sort of spidey sense that without that hard data, you're getting pushback, that there's any sort of dismissal of, well, that's anecdotal data, but someone's complaining about, you know, stomach aches, but you're not actually seeing that, so it's not happening?
I would say it's to the contrary, right? Not everybody seeks their care or goes to an
Yes.
emergency room or a hospital, right? And that's also why we were meeting with the South Bay healthcare providers, because their data is not going to be captured in that surveillance, right? So we're trying to develop a way to capture that data of people actually going to their primary care physician or to a healthcare provider walking into a clinic. But oftentimes people don't seek healthcare for many reasons. They may not have insurance. They might be worried about going to a physician. So they are reporting symptoms, but it's not being reported into a system.
Right.
So this was a way to try to capture everything that we were hearing, all these reports, but it wasn't being captured in another process that we had already in place, like mandated reportable data for infectious diseases, for instance. None of that was going to capture what people were actually, you know, voicing. So this was our attempt to try to capture that anecdotal data. But I will say that the elected officials that we've spoken to, both at the state and federal level, are interested in the results and understanding that people really are being affected and they're reporting those effects. So although it's different from hard data, there's also, we have to be cognizant that there can be a missing section of that, right? That doesn't get
Yes,
reported into the
absolutely.
hard
My
data.
question is more, what
Yeah.
is the political landscape? Because
Yeah.
again, to the funding question.
Yeah, I don't have
That's good
insight
to
into
hear.
that. That would be a good question for our governmental affairs director. And we can certainly ask him to provide a report, to report back and provide information. I can go through Dave.
If there's no other questions, I want to thank you again for your very timely and thorough report. And I think I'm way
Sure.
overdue. And
And Chair Strawn, you might ask if there are any public comments on the item, online or in room.
any questions online out here? I don't see any.
If not, I'd like to also add my thanks to Dr. Kadakia for coming here today. I did warn her in advance that you are going to have a lot of questions, and you, as usual, have many good questions. But the impact and the import of the matter belies the anecdotal type of data, and it really speaks to the community effects. And if they're happening in Imperial Beach, they're also happening in Playa de Tijuana and in Matadero Canyon, Las Laurelas Canyon, and the Tijuana River itself. So both countries, I think, need to turn from anecdotal data to quantitative data and affirmative actions to end the flows and prevent them from recurring again. There are many efforts underway, but we really need to tie them together effectively. So thank you very much for your attendance today.
Yen, your hand's still up, or is that just left over?
That must have been left over. I apologize.
Okay. Thank you again. And I think I'm way overdue in calling for a break. If everybody's okay, we'll take 10 minutes. We'll be back here at 10 minutes before 11. Okay, are we ready to get going again, please?
All right, everybody.
Yeah, Fasayo, come on up and take the microphone.
Good morning, Chair Strawn and members of the board. I'm Fasayo Shibodu, and I'm a senior engineer with the Water Sustainability and Protection Unit. I'm here to introduce item 7 of today's agenda. And for this item, the City of San Diego will be providing an update of its pure water program. Construction of phase 1 of the pure water program is ongoing, and the city will provide an update on the status of construction and other aspects of the pure water program. We are looking forward to implementation of the pure water program as it's in line with our practical vision and would also provide a sustainable local source of water for the city. In future board meetings, other agencies will provide similar information updates to the board on recycle water projects and other sustainable local water supply projects. And present with us today, we have Mr. Juan Guerrero, the Deputy Director of the city's public utilities director, and also Mr. Doug Campbell, Assistant Director of the Water Recovery and Pure Water branch of the city. We also have other members of the city's team here as well. And I would like to call up Mr. Guerrero to give some opening remarks.
Good morning, board members. I'm Juan Guerrero, Director of the city's Public Utilities Department. And again, with me today is Assistant Director of our Water Recovery and Pure Water branch, Doug Campbell, and Doug Owen next to him, part of our program management team, our consultant program management team. And we're here to provide an update on the Pure Water program. So Pure Water San Diego is a transformative program for the city, solving a major wastewater challenge that you're all familiar with, while also creating a reliable and sustainable local drinking water supply that'll serve San Diegans for generations. The first phase of the program is the largest and most complex infrastructure project ever undertaken by the city of San Diego. And when complete, it'll fundamentally change the way San Diegans get their water. As part of this program update, Doug will provide a background on the program and then share some exciting progress updates as we approach 70% completion of construction with commissioning on the horizon for phase 1. So thank you for your time and attention today, and I'll hand it over to Doug to get started on the details.
Okay, good morning, Chair Strawn and members of the board. My name is Doug Campbell. I'm an Assistant Director in the Public Utilities Department. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you today, and I'm excited to share with you some information about Pure Water San Diego. Let's see. So what we're going to cover today is a quick overview of the Pure Water program, including the project drivers and scope, an update on the status of construction of Pure Water Phase 1, some thoughts on our operational readiness as our staff prepares to operate and maintain this facility, and the status of our planning for Phase 2 of Pure Water San Diego. So as you may know, the Public Utilities Department owns and operates the city's drinking water and wastewater systems. Our wastewater system collects and treats wastewater for about 2.3 million people, covering the city of San Diego and our 12 member agencies in the Joint Powers Authority. Although we have 2 water reclamation plants that treat wastewater to Title 22 recycled water standards for irrigation and industrial use, about 90% of the wastewater in the region is treated and flows through the Point Loma wastewater treatment plant. This plant began operation in 1963. It's located on a constrained 40-acre site facing the Pacific Ocean and surrounded by federal lands. You can see in the picture, Rosecrans National Cemetery up top, Navy property to the north, National Park property to the south. Upgrading this facility from its current advanced primary treatment level to the federal standard of secondary treatments would be logistically challenging and exceedingly expensive due to the difficult location. Through a cooperative agreement with 4 local environmental groups, San Diego Coastkeeper, Surf Rider, the Audubon Society, and the Coastal Environmental Rights Foundation, the city agreed to pursue potable reuse in order to significantly reduce wastewater flows to Point Loma. Implementing Pure Water San Diego is a cost-effective and innovative alternative to the expensive and environmentally impactful upgrades to Point Loma. We also have a need to improve our water supply and develop more locally controlled water sources. So the Public Utilities Department provides drinking water to about 1.3 million residents in the city of San Diego and surrounding areas. And due to the location, geology, and climate of San Diego, we have limited sources of local water. And as a result, about 85 to 90% of our water is imported from the Colorado River, from the State Water Project, through MWD and the County Water Authority. This imported water supply faces many challenges, as you can see on this graphic, including population growth and climate change, and the risk of natural disaster. And the cost of imported water has increased significantly in recent decades, and is projected to keep on rising. So San Diego's innovative approach in looking at our drinking water and wastewater systems holistically has resulted in Pure Water San Diego program, which creates a one water cycle. It provides safe, reliable source of drinking water while offloading wastewater flows to the Point Loma wastewater treatment plant. This lowers the volume and improves the quality of our ocean discharge. So Pure Water is a multi-phase program that, when complete, will provide about half of the city's water supply. It's coming in two phases. Phase one is designed and permitted for 30 million gallons per day, and it's currently under construction in the northern part of our service area. So you'll often hear us talk about the North City project. So that refers to phase one in the northern part of the city of San Diego. This is the first permitted surface water augmentation indirect potable reuse project in the state. And that means our purified water will be delivered to a reservoir rather than stored underground. Phase two is planned for an additional 53 million gallons per day and will be located in the central area of the city. So looking more at phase one, this graphic shows our existing infrastructure prior to phase one. You can see it has the black font in the labels. And then in the blue is the new infrastructure that is part of phase one of Pure Water San Diego. It consists of 12 major projects. Starting from the bottom of the map, you can see Morena Pump Station. So this is a new pump station that will redirect 32 million gallons per day of wastewater away from the Point Loma plant and send it up to our North City project. There's about 10 miles of pipeline. That's sort of the orange you see to bring that wastewater kind of through the heart of the city up to the North City Water Reclamation Plant. That's an existing facility that's being upgraded from 30 to 52 million gallons per day. That allows us to maintain our existing supply of Title 22 recycled water and also provide that same tertiary treated wastewater to the North City Pure Water facility, which is under construction across the street. That facility features a comprehensive potable reuse treatment process and will deliver the 30 MGD of purified water through a pipeline that runs down Miramar Road and through Scripps Ranch into Miramar Reservoir. It's delivered into the reservoir through a subaqueous pipeline that spans the length of the reservoir and has multiple arms to ensure thorough mixing. Co-located at the Miramar Reservoir is our existing Miramar Drinking Water Treatment Plant, which uses Miramar Reservoir as a source of drinking water in addition to the CWA aqueduct. So a quick note on the treatment processes at our North City Pure Water facility. This is our potable reuse treatment plant. Most potable reuse projects utilize the last three processes shown in the graphic here, which is membrane filtration, reverse osmosis or RO, and ultraviolet disinfection with advanced oxidation. The heart of the treatment process is essentially RO, which produces near distilled water quality. Our North City Pure Water facility will be the first facility to use ozone and biologically active carbon filtration at the beginning of this treatment process. Now included in California's direct potable reuse regulations, this treatment train was pioneered at our Pure Water demonstration facility. And having those additional treatment steps at the start of your treatment train provides multiple benefits, including destruction of organic contaminants, which improves the quality of our ocean discharge. It pre-treats the water before going through the membrane filtration and reverse osmosis, which reduces power consumption and extends the life of those components. And it also provides additional log removals in our water purification treatment system. Construction of phase one is about 70% complete. This equals out to about 891 of our 1.15 billion in construction contracts that we awarded. We're currently scheduled to reach intermediate substantial completion. That's the red bar there at our North City Pure Water facility later this year. And we're on track to begin delivery of purified water to Miramar Reservoir in mid-2026. Per the surface water augmentation regulations, we will ramp up our flow starting at a maximum of 7.5 MGD for about 4 months, and then moving up to 15 MGD for another 4 months. And we should reach our full 30 MGD capacity in early 2027. That timeline puts us ahead of the commitments outlined in the Point Loma NPDES permit, as well as our cooperative agreement with our environmental groups. And those are the yellow bars towards the end there. So some of our accomplishments during construction. Construction's ongoing at all treatment process units at our North City Water Reclamation Plant. The image in the top right is not a UAP landing at our facility, but it is one of the 4 covers for our new secondary clarifiers. And this is a significant step in our construction progress because it allows us to commission and start using those new secondary clarifiers. And we'll then convert our existing secondary clarifiers to the second stage of our 2-phase of secondary treatment. 5 of 11 of our electrical substations have been installed. This is significant because a lot of the post-COVID delays related to large electrical equipment. So we're proud that they've been delivered and they're being installed quickly. At our North City Pure Water facility, we're approaching 80% complete. All of our treatment processes are being delivered and installed, including the MF, the RO, and the UV and the AOP. At MBC, that's our Metro Biosolids Center. This is where we process the solids for our wastewater system. And since we will be digesting more of this at our MBC rather than Point Loma, as we divert solids, that facility is being upgraded and expanded. As for pipelines, there are about 30 miles of pipeline associated with this project, and we are 70% complete on those pipelines. We finished 9 of our 14 tunnels, including under the 15, and progress tunneling under the 805 is moving along nicely. The subaqueous pipeline under Miramar Reservoir has been completed, and we've reopened that reservoir to public recreation. And at our pump station at Miramar, we are upgrading all of the different pumps and rehabilitating them to give our operators nice control of using the reservoir. Just as our program in general would not be successful without public outreach on the benefits of potable reuse, our construction would not be successful without a robust, multifaceted community engagement program. We're having significant impact on our community as we construct these pipelines and impede traffic. So we have strong outreach both through community groups and tours and community events and social media. As we approach go live of Pure Water Phase 1, we're building and expanding our teams to operate and maintain these facilities. Of note is our operator training program. So operators who work at our North City Pure Water facility are required to obtain a new type of certification. We recruit operators from both the drinking water and wastewater operation program. So they need to be certified as a drinking water or wastewater operator. And then they're required to obtain a relatively new certification. It's called Advanced Water Treatment, offered by AWWA and CWEA. And we have an in-house Advanced Water Treatment Academy where we're preparing our operators to take those exams. We're also currently engaged in a number of readiness efforts across our department to make sure all of the divisions and work groups impacted by Pure Water are educated on the program, trained, and working in coordination as we get closer to commissioning. With phase one anticipated to begin delivering water to Miramar in 2026, we're in the program planning phase for phase two of Pure Water. Building on the successes of phase one, we're conducting workshops with key stakeholders, including the environmental groups and our member agencies in the JPA. The original planning for Pure Water San Diego was completed over a decade ago, it was in 2012. And so we're updating the underlying assumptions as the first step in our phase two planning efforts, including changing water demands, wastewater flows, regulatory changes, and the impacts of climate change. So with that, I believe that we can take any questions that you have.
I have some technical questions and then I just have some overarching questions. One of the technical questions is where you have ozonation and GAC. What was that done at all for consideration of your total organic carbon levels?
Yes, so ozone and BAC, it's biologically active
No, I
carbon.
know what it is.
In
Go
GAC,
ahead.
yeah.
I mean, if you want to explain, I don't know if everyone knows, but.
Yeah. So ozone is O3. It's a powerful oxidant. It's able to break apart a lot of the organics that survive secondary treatment at the water reclamation plant. And it then makes those organics that have been broken down available to the biology that we allow to grow on the granular activated carbon that's in the biologically active carbon filters. And so by pre-treating the wastewater with these two treatment steps, that it reduces the amount of organics of concern in our waste stream that goes to the Point Loma wastewater treatment plant. And so, yes, it was done for total organic concerns. They would be removed in RO, but by having ozone and BAC, you effectively break down and remove a lot of the CECs and other organic contaminants that we'd be concerned about in our ocean discharge.
And is that used currently before RO? And do you get less fouling or more fouling?
Yes. We've seen that at our demonstration plants, sort of the industry standard for the lifespan of your RO units tends to be about 7 years. We're at 12 years and counting at our demonstration facility, thanks to the reduction in fouling and less CIP needed because of the ozone and BAC.
Then I wondered how the overall cost of the plant is affected by what happens with energy costs and what kind of energy you're allowed to use in terms of running the plants, running the pumps. Because you have a lot of pumping now that's kind of going the other way. Probably was going by gravity the old way.
Right. Yeah. Our water supply system in the state and in general is very energy intensive, and that is true of our facility as well. We do use the community power program in San Diego, which is or has a goal of 100% renewable. And so we have.
What does
thought a
that
lot
do to
about
your overall cost? That's what I'm trying to understand here, your overall cost.
Yeah. One, I'm sorry.
Well, it's hard to put a number on it. Obviously, it's going to increase our energy bill with SDG&E directly, but imported water costs, as Doug was mentioning, takes a lot of power as well to bring it up either from Northern California all the way to Southern California or from the Colorado
Well,
River.
where do you get, I mean, don't you get most of yours from IID?
The Water Authority gets a lot of their water from IID.
And that, does that come to the city of San Diego?
It does, yes. But generally speaking, imported water supplies are also energy
I mean, it's
intensive.
just that state water is kind of, I mean, I think what have they increased your allotment to this year, or the state's allotment south, 35% now.
Right.
So when,
Yeah, and we in
so it
San
doesn't go,
Diego.
I mean, you'd go a different way than the Tehachapi. I'm not
Yeah.
sure which is.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm very concerned about energy costs.
Sure.
And the costs that it creates for both recycled water and also for direct potable water, since we're looking at them, in such a serious fashion. And I mean, I really compliment you on being able to do this, but I do want to know about the cost, and I know you're facing increasing costs from Metropolitan. Everyone is, but what percentage of your water do you buy now from Metropolitan?
Right now, it's about 85 to 90% of our water use is from the County Water Authority through Metropolitan.
Okay, so the IID water is considered as Metropolitan water? No, I
Yeah,
thought it was independent.
It all comes via the same system. It's diverted from the Imperial Valley, but it comes through the same supply system as the Colorado River water.
Yeah, it's slightly nuanced because it goes through their system and we pay for the transportation charges to get it to our system. But it is through a contract directly with IID through the QSA contract that the Water Authority has.
So you pay for the wheeling charges.
Right.
Do you also pay for treatment charges too?
Not so much, I don't believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, are you allowed to go on and off the Metropolitan system?
Yes.
Yes.
So if these plants don't operate, then you'll be on the Metropolitan system?
Most likely, yes. Yeah.
And how is that cost paid for then? Well, it's sort of a luxury to be able to say, oh, most of the time I don't want to use your system, but boy, I want it to be there when I need it.
Right. Yeah. So we do pay fixed charges that are part of the rate structure
Mhm.
with our wholesalers. And some of that covers some of those standby charges. And, you know, what's really interesting is changing the way water flows through our water systems.
Yes.
Definitely changes the way we pay for the infrastructure that gets the water to us. So on the drinking water side, we're looking at fixed fees also to make sure those assets are maintained and available in case it is needed. And even on the wastewater side, looking at, you know, diverting flows from certain areas, people look at fail-safe options. We often look at Point Loma too. You know, does Point Loma need to be smaller? But what happens if a pump goes down or one of the facilities goes down? We need it to be there to be a fail-safe option. So it does change the dynamic. It adds additional infrastructure to the regional water system. But again, it's about sustainability, climate resiliency, you know, as weather patterns change throughout Northern California with atmospheric rivers and mega droughts, and seeing what happened to the Colorado River years ago. Reaching dead pool, I think that was Lake Mead.
Yes, yes.
Some major concerns there. So these projects do come at additional costs, but it also comes with additional resilience.
All right, so my last question is, I thought, you know, so if you use all your wastewater and take it to direct potable, I thought you could only get about 30% of your water supply. Are you able to get more than 30% of your water supply?
So after phase 2, we will be about half of our water supply from the Pure Water program. It's about 83 MGD or so, which currently represents about half of our water supply. Thanks to conservation from the droughts of the last decade or so, customers in San Diego are very good at conserving water. And so we've seen overall water use in the region reduce and kind of stay flat rather than pick back up during the wet weather years.
So I know that our indoor water use is right. I think right now I don't know if we went to 50 from 55, or we're still at 55, but it's going to go down to 42 gallons per person per day. Will that affect your overall ability to produce water?
I'll need to confirm this, but if I remember correctly, in San Diego, we're already at or near that lower threshold for indoor water use.
Okay.
We've had very effective messaging over the past decade or so.
All right. So you're already at 40 for your whole area. Our new development is at 43, but that's impressive if your whole area is at 43
Yeah.
already today.
As Doug was mentioning, San Diegans are very impressive at our ability to conserve water. But to your point, it is something we keep our eye on as we build this infrastructure. We do need to make sure we have enough wastewater flow. So when we do build phase 2, we make sure we're building it at a capacity that continues to receive the amount of wastewater it was designed to receive originally. So there's this balance between water conservation and recycled water production that we need to make sure to keep our eye on.
Thank you.
Celeste, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for this report. My question for you is, have you secured all of the revenue sources that you need to secure to build this plant? And are any of those federal sources at our jeopardy of being clawed back?
So we do have funding from both state and federal sources. We do have about 700 million in WIFIA funding from the federal program, about 664 million from the state revolving fund, and about $81 million in grants. These are all very low interest rate loans, and that we're using to finance the program.
Can you please remind me, what will the discharge rate be for Point Loma once the project is up and running? I think it was like 2028.
So with phase one, we anticipate about a 20% reduction in both flows and TSS and BOD loading. And then with phase two, about a 50% reduction from current levels.
So what will that look like in MGD?
So right now, I think we're about 150, 160 MGD annual average. So with phase one, we'll go down about 30 or so. And then with phase two, down to something approaching half of the current discharge volume.
And I'm sure that we've covered this before, but if you don't mind me asking again, given the reduction in by 50% of the planned discharge, what new technologies or different treatment options are being put in place to treat the pollution without the same amount of just flow coming through?
I think I understand the question, but if I don't answer right, let me know. Sure. So we are looking at our system as a whole system. Like San Diego's unique in that all our wastewater kind of flows to one spot, and we look at it as a region. And so we grab wastewater on the way to Point Loma and treat it to very high standards at our reclamation plants and now at our pure water facilities, which improves the level of treatment of the sewage in our region overall. As the flows to Point Loma decrease, then we're able to, increase the detention times and in general have very effective treatment process there.
So will the water be, this is obviously a non-scientific term, will the water that we'll be discharging out at Point Loma come 2028 be quote unquote better than what we're discharging right now?
I think it's safe to say yes. Reduction in flow and in both TSS and BOD loading. So yes.
Any other questions? In the public?
Actually, I had a continued question, Mr. Chair. If I could proceed. Thank you for listing your funding sources, but my question still remains, is that 100% of your funding needs? And are any of those subject to clawback from the federal government?
So I think the federal maximum for funding is 80% of your total project costs. So the WIFIA and SRF loans are extremely helpful, not 100% of the entire program cost. With the clawbacks, we are keeping our eye on that. If there was a clawback and the funding was frozen, we'd have to look to the open market to find other either bonds or commercial paper funding sources, which could be potentially at a higher rate that would have impacts on the cost of water, obviously, to our customers. So we're really hoping that the federal government's able to keep these programs intact to minimize those impacts to our ratepayers. Regarding overall project costs, I just wanted to add in there to Dr. Olson's question about energy. The other thing to keep in mind with this program is also the not needing to expand Point Loma up to a secondary treatment plant. That would also be very energy intensive. So there's an energy balance between pure water phase one and phase two and what it would have been to upgrade Point Loma as well. So I just wanted to add that in as I had some time to sit back and think about my previous answer.
So you're not increasing secondary treatment, you're only increasing your secondary clarifier.
Yeah, there's going to be secondary treatment at phase one also, just not the entire flow that it would be if it was at the Point Loma wastewater treatment plant.
So you're reducing the amount of secondary you have to do.
Right, generally speaking.
That's
yeah. Doug, did you have any additional context? Yeah, Doug's familiar with a little bit more of the detail with the energy costs, and excuse us, Chair or Board Member Cantu, but we just wanted to clarify this a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you. Just to make sure that I understand, we have, or clarify, we have, no pun intended, we have chemically enhanced primary treatment at Point Loma, not going to secondary. The clarifiers that you saw in the improvements are our expanded clarifiers at the North City Water Reclamation Plant. So what Juan was talking about is by doing these kinds of diversions, we don't have to convert to secondary treatment. So there is no secondary treatment at Point Loma, but we don't have to convert to it. And there would be an energy obligation there if we were not doing pure water and we went to secondary treatment.
So does that mean that the TOC and BGAC is being applied to the treated water that gets advanced primary? Is that where we're seeing?
The treatment process that you saw there with
Yes.
the ozone and the biologically active
Yep.
active carbon is at the North City, is at the
Oh, it's
purified
already- so
water
it's-
facilities.
I see.
It's at the purified water
So
facilities.
strictly for the RO.
Yeah, exactly, precisely.
Okay.
It does, as Doug Campbell indicated, it does improve the quality of the brine concentrate, the reject from RO that then goes to Point Loma and is discharged.
I think that Board Member Cantu's point about funding is very well taken because I have heard from lobbyists in Sacramento that they are reducing funds for state revolving. Now, I do not know if that affects projects that have already been allocated. It sounds like yours is already allocated and funded. It might have more of an impact on new projects, but WIFIA, I have not heard that WIFIA is impacted. That's-
I actually have some information. Yeah, on the WIFIA side, the funding, we have not heard anything relative to any desire to pull back or claw back that funding. And I will just offer here, the reimbursement that we have gotten is extraordinary. The average time for reimbursements are 20 days, which is absolutely terrific when you're funding a project of this magnitude.
From WIFIA.
From WIFIA, from
Not
the
the
federal.
state.
Yeah, the state's a little different than that. But the WIFIA has been absolutely terrific. And we have just recently received another payment from them, reimbursement. So it's very positive.
So if I can piggyback off of Member Cantu's statement, I just, I have recently heard about a proposal that's been made to the federal government to expand WIFIA to smaller utilities. And since you're here and you're from a larger utility, I thought I'd ask you. I mean, some people could view it as more competition or more funding to make more of these projects possible. I just wondered what your opinion was.
I think, to what Doug was saying, the WIFIA program is a great program, and to see it expanded to help other agencies, I think we'd be all for it. Even if it does increase competition, it's competition that, we openly accept and, but it's a great program and it's helped a lot of great projects get up and running. So seeing more of that, I think would be very beneficial.
Just a comment going forward, Betty, and use experts. If you could try to avoid some of the acronyms so that the rest of us know what, I know what a WIF is. I don't know what a WIFIA is, but we can talk about that offline. I had a question going way back early in your brief. You had a chart that talked about how the cost of water has gone up. Retail cost, I assume that is. How will this project all the way through phase 2 affect, but your projected effect that will have on the retail cost compared to how it is now and how it would be if you didn't do it? Got a rough idea?
It's a very nuanced question. We're working with the wholesalers, both the Water Authority and our representative with MWD, and really trying to find innovative ways to work differently than we have in the past. As we mentioned before, we're really changing the landscape of the water industry and the infrastructure that's in place. Water's moving from imported supplies to more local supplies, and really looking at ways to leverage some of the contracts that are in place with some of our wholesalers to find if there's ways to transfer water within the Southern California service area, within Met service area, and potentially between states. And that's something that the general manager of the County Water Authority, Dan Denham, is hyper focused on. So to answer your question, the cost of the pure water that we're planning to produce, again, the project's covered 60% of the cost for phase one is covered by our water fund, our drinking water fund, and 40% is covered by our Metro wastewater fund. So when you look at what the 60% of the overall cost of the program is, that obviously lowers the volumetric cost of water that we're going to be providing to our customers. However, the cost of imported water supplies are projecting to continue to go up, but there's also the cost of an increase in fixed fees that are also being projected as well. So it's very nuanced. These local supplies are projected to be cheaper per acre foot than imported supplies, but there are different dynamics that are at play that are gonna hopefully help lessen the burden on our ratepayers and address affordability concerns as imported water supplies continue to climb. So there's a lot at play, but we're really hopeful. I think the Water Authority has done a really good job of entering a few recent contracts to conserve water in the Colorado River. And that's obviously lessened the burden on rates, and they're going to continue to focus on that moving forward. So it's a very nuanced question. I'd hate to give a black and white answer.
I understand.
But
And
yeah,
I
there's a lot
really
at play.
appreciate your answer. Very thorough and thought out.
Normally, the way I see it is, you have the cost of Metropolitan going up, and then you have the cost of, at some point, there's a line where they cross, which relates to a dollar amount or a range of dollar costs. And then do you get the offset charge for this, the LRP program?
Yes.
And how much, so you get, what is that, $400? $400, isn't it, 400?
$340 per acre foot.
340
Yeah,
per
it's-
acre foot. You get that for 15 years or
25 years.
25 years.
25 years. Yeah.
So that lowers the cost.
So
Yeah.
bottom line, it certainly will be better than if you didn't do it, which
Yes,
we thought.
that's correct.
And part of the reason for me asking the question, it goes back to the demand and the reduction in the demand. I don't want to take anything away from your messaging and all that, but I believe the biggest reason region-wide for reduction in use is the cost has gone up. Back at that first drought and they put out the mandated reductions. If everybody really believed that your water was going to cost 3 times as much, you'd have been tearing your lawn out without having to have a mandate. So going forward, if, we obviously the prices are going to keep going up, but if they don't go up at the rate that they have in the past or relative to the rest of the economy, your demand, particularly indoor, might not continue to reduce. So, they play together. I'm convinced that the cost and the demand are very closely linked, and that may affect this and follow-on programs. Yeah.
One of the ways I think these projects are really important and very significant, and I think it builds on Stephanie's point, that you're really going to reduce discharge to the ocean. And so waste discharge, the more of these projects we do, whether or not it's recycled water or indirect potable or direct potable, they all have benefit in reducing ocean discharge. And that is a goal of the state, certainly a goal of this board, and we're very, very proud to be part, to know about your project. Thank you.
Celeste, is your hand still up or am I reading the screen wrong? Different icon. Okay.
Well, it is raised. I apologize.
Okay.
Gary, can I ask a question? Frank Melbourne with the San Diego Regional Water Board, and I have a question for the City of San Diego representatives. For consumers, will we notice a difference in the taste of the tap water that we receive at our homes? And will it be softer? Would it have less salinity? That sort of thing, if you could let us know.
Thank you. That's a good question. So with our current water supply mainly coming from the Colorado River, it tends to be fairly hard water, fairly high TDS and salinity, total dissolved solids and salinity. And pure water, the purified water we produce will be significantly lower in total dissolved solids and salinity, hardness and alkalinity. So we do anticipate some overall softening of our water supply and perhaps some changes or improvements to the aesthetics of the water. Yes.
Great question, great answer. Any others? Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Dave, do you have a comment?
No, do we have any speaker slips on this or anyone on Zoom who wishes to speak on the item? No, we do not. I'd like to thank the City of San Diego again also for their efforts on the Pure Water project. You're taking me one step closer to retirement. Thank you. Appreciate that. Phase 2 is what I want to see through. And just want to acknowledge that the City of San Diego is, like many of us, dealing with a very significant budget shortfall, so that they're continuing to keep eyes forward and options open to move forward on this very important project is, I think, commendable to them. And I appreciate the mayor and council and staff for continuing the course on this item. Again, so I can retire, but thank you.
Thank you.
We do not have a closed session today, so with that, I can close our meeting. Adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.